All right, we're back again for lesson 45. I said that real slow because I almost had a different number. I'll be honest. Let's get right into this. We've talked about this already this year, but we want to make sure we fully understand this idea of dividing by a decimal number. That means the decimal is here on the outside of the box. It's the divisor, right? Or it's the second number, right? It's the second one, not the first one, right? This is always the dividend, divisor, or eventually we're going to get to a point where, right, if it was on the bottom of a fraction bar or a division bar, right? So what happens when our decimal is the second one? What happens when it's outside of the box? We have to follow a step because mathematically we cannot divide by a decimal. So it cannot be here. This thing can't be there. So what do we do with it? What we're going to do is we're going to use the idea of equivalent problems to help us solve this, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 4/10 and I'm going to get the decimal right here. That takes a 4/10 and it turns it into a whole number of 4. And a whole number of 4 we can divide by a whole number. Now, how did this become this? How did this transform into this? Technically, we're multiplying by 10, right? When we multiply by 10, right, we move the decimal to the right one, right? And so I'm going to multiply by 10. Now, I only have to multiply by 10 because I only have to move one place value, right? If I end up getting a decimal that looks like this, then I got to multiply 1, 2, 3, right? I got to multiply by 10,000. That's not right. Just 1,000. Let's just go with 1,000. All right. That's the idea, right? You're multiplying by a power of 10 to get rid of that decimal. But once I do it on the outside here, I also have to do it to the inside here. So if I moved it over 1 here, I gotta move it over 1 here. And so in the end, my new problem becomes 13.6 divided by 4. And then I'm able to solve this problem. And I can solve it. 4 goes into 13 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. Right? Subtract. Right? Decimal, of course, goes straight up. 6 comes down. And we get a final answer of 3 and 4/10. All right, let's practice using this principle in this. In fact, I'm going to let you do it yourself, and we'll double check with it. All right. So notice that this is your divisor, so that's outside of the box, and it has 2 decimal place values. So in essence, you're going to multiply by. Did you just say 100 out loud? I hope so. All right. So you got to move it 2 decimal places to the right. That's enough hints. All right. What happens when it looks like this? What does that really say? All right. In this case, we have an example of 7/100, right, times an unknown of x. So we don't know what x is. So we want to solve for x. We want to know what does x equal. To do that, we're going to rearrange our problem with fact families. Now, if we know that 2 times 3 equals 6, right? If I didn't know what 3 was, if this was a W, 2 times what equals 6, right? I'd have to take this 6 and divide by this 2. So in the end, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to take this and divide by this. So I'm going to put the 5 and 6/10 inside the box and the 7/100 outside the box. Now, as I put it outside the box, I realize that I have 2 decimal places I need to move. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Uh-oh, there's nothing there. Okay, put a 0 there. Put our new decimal there. I can rewrite the problem if those loops become too much of a mess, and I come away with this problem. And suddenly I know that my answer is 80 because 7 goes into 56 8 times, and the 0 then goes straight up because, well, that's how it works, right? And you know that, and I know that, and so we found this answer, right? It looks kind of funny because you're taking a huge number like 80 and multiplying by this teeny tiny number and getting, well, kind of a teeny tiny number, which once we start thinking about multiplication, it does make sense, right? These place values can really change things around. One more. Let's do one more together. All right, what happens when we get this situation? All right, this situation comes away with, well, where is the decimal, right? I'm looking at 21. I don't see a decimal anywhere, right? And this is how I'm going to write the problem. If I'm going to move it on the outside, well, where is it to move, right? This is where we understand, right? We know there's decimal there, even though the problem doesn't initially give it to us. And we move it over and start up correctly. And so come away with this as our new problem. Oh man, these are too easy, too easy. Maybe not too easy, maybe just right. Here's a sample for you. Remember all the steps you need to take when dividing by a decimal. If you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. And we're going to keep plugging in, and you're going to keep excelling. I like that word, excelling. That's it for lesson 45.